Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our session on making your company inclusive for skilled employees with disabilities. My name is Nicole Galacci, and I'm Talent Solutions Manager with Food Grads and Program Partner of Careers Now. Careers Now is the workforce development initiative of Food and Beverage Ontario. We're offering a number of different things for free for employers and job seekers in Ontario, from free job fairs, mentorship sessions, training, skill development, I should say, and training for job seekers and new hires, as well as coaching for job seekers and for an HR training for small businesses. So if you look on the screen, you'll see the link to careersnow.ca. All the information is on there, and we're happy that you're able to join us today. My email will also be on there if you want to reach out for any particular reasons. So I'm joined today by my colleague Donald, who is program partner of Careers Now and also program manager with the Discoverability Network, Rosie from Maple Lodge Farms, and Morgan from Denninger's. And I will sort of let them introduce themselves and why they're here chatting with us today. But for now, I will pass over to Donald to sort of talk to us about the Discoverability Network.
Thank you for the introduction, Nicole. It occurs to me I could have maybe dressed a little more casually and worn my Careers Now shirt, but alas, I did not think about that this morning. My name's Donald Gussie-Sala. It's a pleasure to be here. I do have a slide deck to accompany my presentation, so just bear with me a moment while I get it onto the screen for you. And now you should see my slide deck in its full screen glory. So as you can see from the name, I'm going to speak about the Discoverability Network, as well as our partnership with Food and Beverage Ontario and the benefits of being an inclusive employer. And my contact information is there. If you feel like reaching out to me, certainly I would welcome you to, and you will have a good idea of what kind of benefits you'll receive from our program should you decide to contact. So to begin with, if you're not familiar with the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, the Discoverability Network is an Ontario Chamber of Commerce program, and the Ontario Chamber of Commerce works with actually over 150 local chambers of commerce across the province, representing 60,000 member businesses in Ontario. In 2019, 75% of Ontario businesses responded to a survey reporting that finding talent was their number one barrier to growth, and that those skills shortages were limiting business growth, development, and innovation. So the OCC, of course, being concerned with the health of business and the workforce, determined that a viable solution would be to develop a program that would connect businesses with a relatively untapped talent pool that would help fuel an innovative growth and measured return on investment. And if you've been reading ahead, then you're not surprised to find out that the talent pool that was identified was people with disabilities. So when we talk about people with disabilities and some of the barriers to hiring, it's important to understand what they are. When you see the statistics on the screen about the lower rate of employment for people with disabilities than those without, 59% are employed, people with disabilities are employed, as opposed to 80% of the rest of the population. And that gap has, it says persists unchanged for over a decade. It's actually been quite some time, much longer than a decade at this point. And some of the common reasons for this are just general attitudes, misconceptions, and misunderstandings about the competency or productivity about employees with disabilities. Some misconceptions around the fact that maybe they'll be less productive, or hiring them as a charity act, which it should not be. You should be hiring people that are going to be productive for your business. The costs, there are really incorrect assumptions about costs related to accommodations. This one's actually, it's amazing that it has persisted as long as it has, because most accommodations have nothing to do with disability. Most accommodations are for family care, personal, religious, and so on and so forth reasons. I don't know why we talk about accommodations for people with disabilities as a matter apart from all other accommodations, but accommodations for people with disabilities represent the significant minority of accommodations that businesses have to make for their employees. And then, of course, capacity, and this one is a much more on-the-ground barrier. Many businesses don't have the HR functions to help with hiring, training, retention, promotion, reviewing practices and processes, developing more accessible approaches to recruitment and onboarding. And this is one of the areas where the Discoverability Network can help, but I'll get into that. Now I'd like to speak a little bit about the facts of around people with disabilities in the workplace. There will be greater revenue generally for a business as a result of really customer loyalty. 87% of people indicate they prefer to give their business to companies that hire inclusively. And this is one of the reasons why if you view our roadmap, the Discoverability Network has a roadmap to hiring on our website that goes through all the stages right through job posting and recruitment to onboarding and retention. And the final step is promoting your success, because people will be more likely to patronize your business if they know you're hiring inclusively, and they'll be more likely to continue patronizing your business. There are higher savings in as much as people with disabilities represent up to 72% higher staff retention, which of course saves millions of dollars in each year in recruiting and training. And when it comes to attendance, 86% of employees with disabilities rate average or better on attendance. Now, these two taken together, I think, form the core of a very strong argument for hiring people with disabilities, because, of course, high turnover rates combined with high absenteeism cost businesses quite a bit of money. Whereas if you have lower turnover and lower absenteeism, then you have lower operating costs and more money that can be invested in business growth. And then there's health and safety. This is another area where there have been misconceptions, but the data shows that 98% of employees with disabilities rate average or better on safety. So any concerns about insurance premiums going up or there being potentially more safety risks in the workplace are entirely unfounded. So these are just some of the facts that are available to help you get a better understanding of what to expect when you have someone with a disability in the workplace. Another important figure is that 20% of Canadians, 1/5 of the population, are represented by people with disabilities. It's the fastest growing and largest diversity group. It's the single largest minority group in the population. I mean, at 1/5 of the population, and with the labor shortages that are present now and that we know are only going to grow and get worse. I mean, Stats Canada was talking about a 1 million job shortfall by 2020 or 2022. I mean, we're there. And I think the labor shortages are even more acute than were being predicted at the time. So ignoring or not hiring from 1/5 of the available labor force is really not a winning proposition. Additionally, people with disabilities and their close relations, so that's the people who are supporting them, their families, their friends, and so on and so forth, represent over 50% of the population. So that is a market that businesses can't afford to ignore either. Now, when we talk about hiring people with disabilities, we talk about practices and processes and approaches. We're really talking about how you can attract diverse talent and how you can do it successfully. And there are some fairly simple things that can be done that are not really onerous, but they may take some thought and some flexibility. But build accommodations into your processes. This is really not difficult. You can have a basic statement of, we offer accommodations, please ask for one if you need it in your job postings and so on and so forth. But what we're talking about is just doing something a little more substantial than that. Building accommodations in your process could look like offering accommodations at every step of the recruitment process. And while that may sound a bit excessive, keep in mind that we're all familiar with different learning styles. We hear about them all the time when we're growing up, or if we have kids who are in school, they talk about them because they're learning about them. And the same thing goes for the way people, way people present themselves. People are going to have different ways of presenting themselves most effectively. So building accommodations into your process means that the people you're interviewing will be able to present themselves in the best way possible, so you can make a more informed decision when you are doing your recruitment. And what you'll notice is that the adaptations or the kinds of changes that we're suggesting will really be better for everybody, not just job seekers with disabilities, even though that's our focus here, but they will be better for people who, for newcomers, people from different cultures, people with English as a second language, and many other groups would benefit from these kinds of approaches. So when we're talking about building accommodations into your process, you don't even, you don't always have to say, do you need an accommodation? You can ask, here's the interview format. What are there any changes that you might need in order to present yourself most effectively, or something like that? A typical question in an interview is, what do you need to succeed in the workplace. And that is, in effect, an opportunity for people to mention that they might need an accommodation of some sort, which is really just a change in the workplace so that they can do the primary part of their job as effectively as possible. Create accessible job postings. And by this, I mean, obviously, if these are being shared digitally, you want to make sure that they are accessible for screen readers and people with low vision and things like that. But that's not really what I mean here. What I want to focus on here with accessible job postings is eliminating that laundry list of items, most of which are unnecessary, that are in postings. Job postings haven't changed in decades. It's really quite astonishing. But just list what is actually needed. And consider what is needed to perform the core functions of the job. A good example of things that may not be needed are post-secondary education, a driver's license. I've had many jobs that I've applied for, such as when I worked in construction or when I was in supervisor in my previous workplace, that all said you needed to have a G2 driver's license. So I did the jobs quite fine without a driver's license. So that's just one example. So review your job postings and be honest with yourself. What is actually required to do the role, and what has just been added in order to make the job posting more robust, or make it seem like the job is not too simple. Again, you really want to invite people to apply who have what you need. And again, this is beneficial for a large number of groups. One of the some of the data that are out there you can look up show that women are not likely to apply for jobs unless they have about 80% of what is listed as a requirement. Whereas men, us being presumptuous, are more likely to apply for jobs as long as we have at least 60% of what's available. And you don't want to be screening people out of the application process simply by listing too many requirements so that they think maybe they're not qualified, and then they don't apply. So you may not even be getting the best people applying if you list too many requirements, especially those that are not necessary. And finally, use diverse recruitment tools. We talked to job seekers about not using one job search tool. As recruiters, obviously, you want to source talent from multiple places. And when it comes to connecting with talent pools of people with disabilities, there are specific places you can go to make sure that you're getting your job postings out to that group. The Discoverability Network is one. We operate an online job matching platform that's free for employers to use that matches candidates to roles that you post based on fit and preference. There's the Spectrum Works Job Fair, which occurs every April, which is a national job fair specifically to connect job seekers with disabilities and businesses. And there are several others, which I'm sure you'd be able to find, or we can help direct you to. Now, accommodations, this is a pretty big issue, or at least it's made out to be a big issue, so I'm going to speak about it a little more. They're not extras in a job. I know it says they make a person better at their job on the slide. The reality is they allow somebody to do a job that they are already able to do, because you're not going to hire somebody who can't do the job. They just might need to do it differently. And so they're changes to attitudes, processes, or the workplace so that an employee can do the job well. The standards aren't lowered. Things may be completed differently so that somebody can be as effective and productive as possible in the workplace. And again, you already do this. As a business, you do this a lot. Pregnancy, childcare, modified duties such as WSIB, religious reasons. These are the primary reasons for accommodations. Most accommodations are not related to disability. So if we stop thinking about disability accommodations apart from everything else, this becomes a real non-issue. However, some statistics around accommodation costs. There was a return of $28.69 for every dollar invested in accommodations. 50% of businesses report a one-time cost of $100 to $500 for a workplace accommodation, and 37% of businesses report no costs. So the actual statistic is that over 90% of accommodations cost $500 or less. Pardon me, I have a frog in my throat. There we go. And 25% of companies report saving $20,000 to $100,000 because of effective accommodations. And again, these statistics are not specifically related to job seekers with disabilities. We're using them in this presentation because accommodations, again, is often something that is questioned. People want to know more. But these are general statistics around accommodations. And most accommodations are not for disability. So what is the Discoverability Network? The Discoverability Network is a free Ontario Chamber of Commerce program designed to facilitate connections between businesses and job seekers with disabilities in order to address workforce needs. So we have an online job matching platform that we operate, which connects businesses to job seekers based on fit and preference for the roles. As a business, you can post your roles, specify the requirements, and then job seekers that have expressed an interest in the sector or industry that you're operating in and who have some of the qualifications for your job posting will be matched to the role. We also provide free training for all of our stakeholder groups, including businesses, on a range of disability and employment related topics. So things like disclosure and accommodations in the workplace, hiring and retaining talent, and many others. And we operate networking events that bring all of our stakeholders together in order to make connections, share resources and best practices and success stories in order to support everyone's success. We also offer consultation services for businesses in order to help identify potential gaps or areas for improvement and develop practices and processes that are more accessible and inclusive. With respect to Food and Beverage Ontario, we have partnered with FBO in order to connect with its members and provide more fulsome supports to FBO members in order to assist and support their ability to hire and retain talent with a disability. Obviously, the free job matching platform is available to you as well as the training, but we can also post roles on your behalf. I mentioned previously that we know some businesses, especially small to mid-sized enterprises, may not have the dedicated HR functions to source talent from many different places simply because one person can only do so much. But we can post roles on the platform on your behalf, and then we can share the applicants with you on a weekly basis. We're doing that for a growing number of businesses. Training can be available to not only large groups, but also individual stores or individual locations and teams. Again, we have a roadmap as well as tools on our site, which is available for you to find, or we can refer you to it. And it is a great guide to use and also refers to tools that you can use to support your efforts. We can provide connections to our partners and their labor pools. So we work with a number of employment service providers across the province that support talent pools of people with disabilities directly. And we can get your job postings out to those talent pools and act as a real single talent pipeline, a viable single point of access, whereby their candidates are coming through us and we're sharing them with you. And then you can connect with the candidate. If you want an introduction to the employment supports for the candidate, we can facilitate that as well. So we can cast a wider net for your postings and get you connected with organizations that are providing supports for candidates on the job. We do have, for the time being, at least until March 31st, 2023, onboarding and retention funds to offset costs. This could be up to $1,500 per hire. So if you hire somebody through our platform or a partnership with us, whether it's us sharing the role with our partners or anything like that, then we can provide, like I said, we can provide those onboarding and retention funds to offset the costs of recruitment and training. And we provide ongoing support, guidance, questions and answers, facilitating more direct recruitment from employment service providers, as well as the consultation on practices and processes are all available on an ongoing basis to any businesses that are working with us or posting on our platform. Oh, and I should say on our platform, we will also, if you want, we can do a walkthrough of posting roles. We don't expect you to just go on and necessarily do it. I mean, most of it's straightforward, and I think you're going to figure it out. But there are some unique features, and so we can go through the posting process with you and explain some of those unique features. Most of it is just stuff that comes from your job posting, but we're happy to provide the walkthrough. Now then, I talked about connecting to talent pools with employment service providers, which is what ESPs refers to. And these are some typical supports that they would provide for their job seekers. On-site coaching for new hires. So they will enhance the employer training and ensure task mastery, as well as provide support for the employer in understanding any differences in how new hires perform their duties or in communication by sending a job coach with the new hire to the role in order to rephrase or reframe information from the training and to help make sure that the person really picks it up. They'll also provide retention supports, whether retraining is required or additional coaching if a role changes. They provide accommodation supports, identifying and implementing accommodations. They are obviously very familiar with the job seekers they're supporting, so they have a very good idea of what a job seeker would need to be successful in a certain environment, and they can help with determining what accommodations would be most effective. And of course, interview supports. Now, I've done all of these things before. In interview supports, it's important to note that if a job coach comes to an interview, that's an accommodation that should be welcomed, and the job coach isn't going to answer questions for the candidate. The job coach is there to reframe questions so the candidate understands what's being requested, and to rephrase information if for some reason they're just misinterpreting what's being asked. A good example is I remember supporting someone in an interview for a job at a restaurant, and they were asking if he had any education or licensing or anything like that specific to working in a food service environment, and he talked about some of his experience volunteering and other things like that. But he forgot something rather critical, and so I just prompted him by saying, is there anything else you've done related to education and food service that you might be forgetting? And he said, oh yeah, I've got my food handler certification, which of course is kind of important. And it just didn't occur to him the way the question was asked to include that in the information he was sharing. Now, if you need a roadmap, I said we have one, and you see the link to it on the screen here. And there are 5 steps. You can see them there: finding talent, interviewing and hiring, onboarding, accommodations, of course, and promoting your success. And under each step, you will have some sort of subheadings, suggestions for what to do, direction to resources and tools in order to support your successful implementation of each step. And we can always go through this roadmap with you again and provide consultation services along the way. So we welcome you to make use of this tool. That is the conclusion of my presentation. I haven't been timing myself. I certainly hope I have not taken too long, but we would invite you to connect with us, to follow us on our social media channels, and start posting on our platform and recruiting talent with a disability and allowing us to support you to do it successfully today.
Thank you. There's a lot of information. I'm so glad this is being recorded. One of the things that resonated with me was you mentioned 22% of the population actually has a disability, and most employers aren't tapping into that talent pool, which in this current climate is mind-blowing because it's such a challenging time to hire. So I really hope people pay attention to that. We have a question from Jason. Hey Donald, do you have a talent pool that employers can tap into? If so, is there a resource available in if searching for a specific talent? He says, I believe you just answered this, but can you share the link? Would that be one of the ones you shared?
Yeah, so I can So in terms of, if I understand the question, looking for talent with specific qualifications or specific talent. So to sort of recap, there's our online job matching platform, and that platform, when employers post roles, they'll specify what qualifications are required to do a job. And then the job seekers that are matched to those roles will have some of those qualifications. The employer will be able to see what qualifications the job seekers have when they apply. So if you are looking to connect with job seekers and know that they want to know 100% that they have certain qualifications, our platform will facilitate that. However, we can also share your postings with employment service providers that we work with across the province. Obviously, we'd look at sharing it with employment service providers we work with in your community. If you're hiring in Ottawa, we're not going to share it with job seekers in Toronto. That just makes no sense. But when we share the job postings with our partners, they're working directly with talent pools. And so what they will do is they will identify candidates that are or who are appropriate for the roles, who have the qualifications you're looking for. And if you specify certain things that they must have, then the partners will take that into consideration, and the candidates that are forwarded should be ones who meet your requirements. So hopefully that answers the question. Again, I would recommend please reach out to me. I'm happy to have a more targeted conversation about whatever it is that your needs are, and figure out what kind of supports we can provide for your recruitment practices that would be most effective. I don't know if there's a way for me to put my contact information in a chat or something for people to see, or if not, then Nicole, you're welcome to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that your email address, I think, is going to be floating at the bottom of the screen, so people can reach out directly, which is good. So this is a good segue. So I know you and Rosie have been speaking recently, Rosie from Maple Lodge Farms, because they, as an organization, are interested to work with you. So I'll sort of pass that over to you and Rosie. I guess, Rosie, you go ahead and introduce yourself and how you're working with Donald.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Thanks for the introduction. Rosie Kelsey from Maple Lodge Farm, Senior Manager Talent Experience. And what that means overall, I guess for my viewer audience is my position is really vested in building pipelines for the organization. And so we have looked at various centers, employment centers, and then the talks of really tapping into unique partnerships, and I think this being one of them with Donald. But the hesitation was only because, are we ready for this? Are we ready to partner and perhaps have the foundation put in place at Maple Lodge Farms? We are a very unique setup industry. We are meat processing. Our plant operations are directly attached to our office space. So therefore, the complexity comes in between our office staff and our plant operations. Having said that, we have this plan in place at the moment that we are looking into our operation support, as well as partnering with Donald of how we're going to integrate these individuals, and the benefit is tremendous. Again, building into our pipeline, which means definitely looking big and broad around retention, number one, which is the number one issue we're having right now. We have a lot of loyalty here, meaning we have a lot of individuals that have been here for a very, very long time. Now, with said that, those individuals are now retiring. They're coming up to the retirement stage. They're moving into different, I guess, different segues of their lives. There's some individuals that are just, gone for quite some time in terms of long-term disability, short-term disabilities. So we've got gaps in the business. The slogan is we feed Canadians. So you can only imagine the amount of reach that we have with producing and reaching out to the food service business and retailers and whatnot. So operations is the bottom foundation. And so getting the buy-in from operations of saying, can we integrate these individuals that can come in with the factor of knowing that our jobs are very autonomous, their jobs are very repetitive, there's, cold environments, standing for long periods of times, there's a lot of repetitive motion. And they said, absolutely, we can have individuals that come in that fit, the requirements. We've also looked at a different program of having individuals translated to. So we currently have a translation service in place. We also have our employees as we are going to reach out to them as calling them as peer coaches or buddy system, where we will integrate these individuals as we hire them to bring them on board. So we're going to pilot in the sense, let's try a few, bring them in and see how they integrate well with the business. And so having a buddy coach system is the way to integrate based on, the language skill, if there's any gaps there, the training with quality, food safety, quality, health and safety. And we've gotten buy-in from everyone. So we're really, really excited about this. It's going to be one of those initiatives where we've been looking to do for a very long time, but you got to have the right program in place. We also will have a great orientation program for them, which could be a little bit separate from our, day-to-day hiring that we would be doing to support the business. And so almost like a catered, specific program just for these individuals so that they feel that they're being integrated and not just, a part of just anyone else that could be very quick at just this building is literally, full of 2,000 employees. So getting around here is challenging as well. So we've looked at every facet of what could be a hiccup or a challenge, but we've ironed those all out right now and we're ready. We're ready to move forward, and we're going to be looking into hiring our first set of individuals, I would say. We also have an info session set up that we've done. So once we connect with the individuals and qualify them further, we want to bring them on site. It's really important to show them and feel this place. There's a lot going on here. We have, different how do I say this without sounding, we have a feel and like for this place. They've got to walk through and see what this is like. And, they've got to like it. They've got to really like it to say, yes, we're vested, because it's not for everyone. There's an ask for PPE, which is personal protective equipment that they've got to put on. They've got to feel that. They've got to go through plant tours here, which is part of the program we would like for them to do. And at the end of it, make that decision if they'd like to join us. And that would be pretty much it.
I remember walking through the facility a few years ago now, and one thing that resonated with me was how family orientated it is, how everyone sits in the lunchroom, and the culture is very important and to the organization, and you could feel that. So Donald, was there anything specific that you wanted to add in terms of how Discoverability Network are working directly with, say, a meat processor? That would be my first question. As an employer, that's what I would be thinking.
Well, when we partner with specific employers, and I should say, we have over 1,700 employers using our platform. We obviously don't have day-to-day working relationships with all of them, but we do have day-to-day working relationships with a growing number of them. And we're particularly excited about the nascent partnership with Maple Lodge Farms, just because of the potential that it holds. But when we develop a partnership, we do so looking at the specific business's needs and how we may be able to help address them. So it's not so much Maple Lodge Farm being a meat packing and processing. I mean, obviously that's specific to the work that's done, and Rosie and her team are the experts in what they need in the work environment and how best to approach recruitment with respect to things like showing people the environment, making sure it's a good fit for them. They have a number of very supportive elements already integrated into their practices. But really, we take that as a lead from the employer, and then we look at how we can connect them to the talent. So with Maple Lodge Farms, we're looking at developing what is really, what I've been referring to as a targeted recruitment pipeline. So we are actually working with all sorts of industry terms here, but we're working with what's called a system service manager in the Peel region that is responsible for all of the organizations that are providing employment supports in Peel under the Employment Ontario and OESP Employment Services umbrella. And so what that means is we can bring in a number of talent pools to provide candidates that are appropriate for the roles that Maple Lodge Farms is hiring for. And what we do is we take Maple Lodge Farms' approach and integrate it into this partnership. So Rosie mentioned the info session, taking people on a tour through the factory and that sort of thing, or factory's plant. I think plant is the term that you use, Rosie, not factory, sorry. But all of those things will be integrated into the partnership. They'll be coordinated through the system service manager in order to get the job seekers that are applying all together in a group to do those things. The employment service providers in that network will be providing candidates based on what Maple Lodge Farms is looking for, and we'll be sharing, Maple Lodge Farms will be sharing specific roles they're recruiting for that are designed to target that talent pool. So looking at jobs in the plant as well as jobs in the store, so that there's a combination of full-time and part-time positions. And the idea is to, like I said, really create a targeted recruitment pipeline, which we have done. This is modeled after a sort of a pilot that we did with another employer in a different industry altogether. And we only did it with one employment service provider partner, not a system service manager that had all sorts of talent pools beneath it. So we're quite excited to see what this produces. But in terms of these partnerships, like I said, the business is the expert in what they need, and we just try to support with any adaptation of processes and then integrate what they're looking for in the way they need to recruit into the type of partnership that we're building.
So Rosie, what are your pain points? Like, what position titles would you be looking for right now?
Yes, absolutely. I was going to highlight that. The goal in mind is for our general labor staff that we have in our plant operations. We, have a significant turnover. Yet it's a complex industry. Once you come in, either you feel very quickly, either you would like to stay or you would like to, unfortunately leave, because it's temperature controlled, like I said. There's a lot of different requirements in the meat industry, and so therefore, it's not for everyone. And that's why we go through the motion of taking them through the tours and helping them understand what the jobs are. We have about 200 vacancies open right now on an ongoing basis. And they will range anywhere between all the various plants. So we have 6 facilities that are connected together, which means 6 different plants that do 6 different processings. So it starts from receiving and to end product. And so therefore the roles can be different. Some are fairly manageable in terms of packaging, and some are a little bit more complex in terms of on the live receiving of the product. And so we would be very, I think, mindful and cognizant of who would want to go where and where they would think they would be the best fit, because not every plant operation will be able to accommodate based on the level of position that it is. And so therefore, the pay ranges are fantastic. I think they're very competitive. We are offering, benefits immediately. We're doing retention payouts as well. So that piece, I feel like we also have brought together for these individuals to take advantage of that, and also be mindful that they will be integrated with the regular staff that we have. And so having the general labor staff, frontline employees, which are most important to us, that is the targeted search that we're looking to fulfill, because of the retirees that are coming in, the individuals that are on modified work duties, example, or short-term, long-term disabilities. There's a lot of gaps within operations right now, and just in general, just to keep up with our volume of people, taking we call them vacation leaves for long periods of time. They want to go back home. They're gone for 4 weeks out of the month, and so we accommodate that as well. And so there are those gaps that we want to fulfill as well, and keeping that pipeline really healthy, and to ensure that if we do lose people for whatever reason that may be. A lot of newcomers come to Canada. It's the first job. We employ everyone, and so it's the first job that they want to take with us, and then after a year or two they decide to move on, and that's fine too. But again, we want to be able to integrate our disabilities network as well, because I find they're the most loyal and very thankful, and to get them back into the workplace is the goal, right?
Mm-hmm. And it's purposeful, as you say. You're feeding Canadians. It's a wonderful industry to join. So I know I spend my days through food grads and careers now, sharing that message. And I can't wait to sort of hear how you're doing and share those stories through our different channels and support Maple Lodge Farms in that respect. So we'll sort of switch gears and talk to Morgan. So you do have a history of hiring people with disabilities. So I'll pass things over to you to introduce yourself and your experience at Denninger's.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Morgan. I'm the HR manager at Denninger's. Same as Rosie, a big part of my role is creating those pipelines to access new talent and bring people into the business. Another part of my job is retaining our associates, making sure that we have those systems in place to make sure that people are successful and able to do their jobs, and creating and maintaining an inclusive working environment. So just as a brief background on it, Denninger's, for those who don't know, we're a family-owned and operated business, and we've been in Hamilton since 1954. When our first retail location opened, our manufacturing plant, also located in Hamilton, opened in 1979, and it is still in the same location today. So Denninger's is proud to be an equal opportunity employer, and it values the importance of diversity and dignity in the workplace. We have worked with multiple organizations in discussing and creating opportunities for people with disabilities in the food and beverage industry. So this includes the Discoverability Network and making sure that our job postings are reaching people with disabilities. We've also partnered with other agencies such as Community Living Hamilton to create programs and ensure people that are being provided the skills that they need to be able to be successful in the food and beverage industry. So a little bit about hiring and retaining people with disabilities. At Denninger's, we have been successful in hiring and retaining individuals with disabilities, and we are proud to ensure that everybody is included and welcome to an inclusive environment. To ensure that our job opportunities are inclusive and reaching people with disabilities, as Donald mentioned, our population is made up of 20% of people with disabilities. We ensure to advertise with the community-based employment agencies that allow access into this talent pool. So our job postings, right from the beginning, we ensure that our recruitment process is inclusive, from our job postings to our interview procedures. So our job postings, we make sure to include exactly what's required of the job, so somebody knows what will be required of them as they come into the business. Also making sure they know who and how to ask for an accommodation if needed in that procedure. They are again reminded of the ability to request an accommodation when we do confirm their interview with them. So then we also make sure that the interview process is inclusive. So making sure that it's an accessible environment, and then people are also allowed the tools that they need to be successful. So an example of this may be, as Donald mentioned, having a support worker there with them to help guide them through the interview. This is common, and we do encourage people to bring anybody they need as a support worker or tools they need to be successful, as we want to make sure that every individual applying for each job is successful as possible in the interview process. So whenever we do accommodate, they are based off of the individual needs of a person. So this involves having a one-on-one conversation with the individual to find out their requirements and what they need to be successful. It is important that all employees have the tools they need to be successful in their role. So once this has been determined, the accommodation plan is prepared and reassessed to ensure that we're continuously meeting the individual's needs. So we want to make sure that they are provided with those tools. As mentioned, it may be a support worker coming in. We have in the past had support workers come in at the beginning of shifts to help our employees get set up, make sure they're clear of their expectations for the day, and get them started on their duties for that day. So once an employee has been set up to succeed, they're managed the same as all other associates. They're clear of what's expected of them. They know their job requirements, and they're provided with regular feedback to ensure that they are being provided with the best opportunity to be successful in their role. So we allow for open communication and encourage open communication. We need to know on both ends that everything that's being provided for an associate with a disability is meeting their needs. And if anything needs to be changed, we are adapting to their needs as necessary. So Deningers is unique as an employer in the sense that we not only produce our products at our manufacturing plant, but we also sell our products exclusively in our stores. So we have different types of roles that are able to accommodate people's abilities at all ends. So right from the beginning of receiving the product to producing the products and selling the products. So we have hired for a wide variety of different roles, and people with disabilities have been successful in all ends of the business. At our manufacturing plant, as Rosie mentioned, it is sometimes a challenging environment because of the cold, damp weather. We do have to regulate for food safety. So we do a trial shift to allow people to be able to see what the environment looks like. Is the environment going to allow them to be successful as an employee? So allowing them to do a one-day trial shift to see what the job requirements are, and then deciding on, is that a right fit for them as an individual? We allow all associates coming into our manufacturing plant to do that trial shift to allow them to see what the environment looks like and have a realistic view of what the job requirements are as well. So we have hired into different roles all throughout our manufacturing plant and accommodate as needed based off of individual needs. So overall, we are proud to employ people with disabilities at Deningers, and our goal is to ensure that everybody has those tools they need to be successful.
Thank you. We're so happy that you were able to join us today and share the successes that Deningers had. We definitely, through our Taste Your Future program and Careers Now and Food Grads, would love to share more stories, talk to individuals that are happy working with your organizations, and really get the stories out there, the message out there, through those different channels. So I know that people are listening to this recording after the fact. So if you have any questions about these Maple Lodge Farms and the roles they have, or Deningers, you can absolutely get in touch. The email addresses are on the screen, or at least you can get in touch with me or Donald and we can connect you. I don't think we have any other questions at this point in time. Thank you, Lauren, for your comment there. But yes, if you're watching this afterwards through the recorded session, please feel free to reach out and ask any questions you might have. This has been really insightful. It's such a challenging time for hiring, so to tap into this candidate pool is so important. And I like what you have on the website. It's not the right thing to do, it's the right business thing to do. You know, it just makes sense to do this. So thank you again. Thank you everyone that joined us today, and we'll see you again soon. Have a good afternoon. Bye for now.